Hi everyone, and welcome to our next episode of Tarot in the Garden and Garden Arcana hashtag. I can't wait to show you these next three cards. Today we're going to be delving into the Emperor, the Hierophant, and the Lovers. We're going to talk about the cards. I'm going to show you where I see them in my garden. The Fool is always with us. You know, I think I neglected to mention in my first video, I really consider myself the Fool in this process. I am always looking for new ways to plant things in my garden, new ways to utilize my garden, always looking for those new beginnings in my garden. I also am really very much new to tarot. You know, I recently discovered tarot maybe 2 years ago. And since then, I have just studied and devoured tarot. I started out doing more oracle things. I felt like oracle was just easier. I didn't have to memorize cards, you know, but that then said, you know what, I'm feeling a little limited. I want to use them both. So I delved in to tarot also. So let's go see what my garden and the cards hold for us today. So let's get right into the cards. And today we're starting with the Emperor. That Emperor really represents that structure and that conformity. I really think of it when I'm out in my garden as the structure of my garden. When we go out, I'll show you we're actually going to be building a fence. Anything that kind of lends that structure, I really think of as Emperor energy. We're going to start here with the Mystic Fairy Tarot. And this Emperor sits upon this kind of rock throne. You can see his oak leaves around here. Although I don't have an oak tree in my yard or my garden, they are in the neighborhood, and I love seeing them when I take a walk. That the oak leaves show that while he must uphold man-made institutions, he endeavors to incorporate timeless universal wisdom in all his decisions and actions, and that comes from the guidebook. I really love the guidebook of the Mystic Fairy Tarot because it really tells us the story of all of these different fairies. Our next deck is the Herb Crafter's Tarot, and the Emperor here is represented by hemlock. Again, I don't have any hemlock evergreen trees in my yard, but I do have things that I consider kind of similar. And from the guidebook, the Emperor Hemlock stands for building strong boundaries, a sturdy structure that supports abundant growth, and our own authority. So we'll be looking for ways we'll find that in my garden. And then, of course, we have the Green Witch Tarot here. And which is, the Emperor here is represented by the Horned God. And he is the guardian of nature, the protector and nurturer of the natural cycles under his care. And that, again, comes from the guidebook. One of the other things I love about the Green Witch Tarot is that it always talks about the plant and animal that is also in the card. So the plant that's in this card is wild bergamot, which represents authority, power, fertility, energy. And then we have the ravens up here in the sky, which represent messengers and guardianship, growth, guidance. So those are our cards for the Emperor. And now let's head out to the garden and see where we can find these energies. One of the first things I think of when I think of the Emperor, of course, are these garden beds. They provide one of the first structures of my garden. They contain my herb garden, my vegetable garden, as well as some flowers. The other thing I think of course, is my trellis that hopefully here will start to have some loofah plants growing up over it. And then when you come over here, you're going to see those blue flags laid out. Well, I have finally convinced my husband that we need a fence, so hopefully that will be going up next weekend and will be so much a part of the structure of my garden that represents the emperor. The other structures that I think that represent the emperor are the things that are almost throne-like. So it's the things that I set things on. So like these kind of tables of brick that I then set plants on, I think are very representative of emperor energy. I also have another one on the other side of the garden. You know, I can also even think of our deck as emperor energy in that it's really kind of controls what goes on in our garden, and it's almost a limiting factor also. See, and there is another one of my brick pieces that I think really radiate that emperor energy. And now we're moving on to the Hierophant. So I have our cards out here, and again we're going to start with the Mystic Fairy Tarot, and the Hierophant here is represented by the priest. So he is in contrast to the High Priestess of this deck, where the High Priestess is going inward and using more intuition. He is more outward focused. Okay, he you know, is looking out. He is rooted down deep into the earth as being seen here with these oak leaves. And then of course we have the Herb Crafter's Tarot, where the Hierophant is represented by cacao. So, you know, although of course I do not have that growing in my garden, from the guidebook, a revelation is at hand. Seek the truth in spiritual teachings, and the most potent wisdom emerges from the heart. When I think of that, I think more of ritual and ceremony. The one thing I love about the Herb Crafter Tarot Handbook is that it gives us ideas for crafting with this card and using this energy. And it talks about participating or creating ceremony and listening for an epiphany. And then we move on to the Greenwich Tarot here, and again we have the High Priest, and from the High Priest we see in here we have his plant and animal. The plant is yarrow, representing authority, blessing, energy, and protection, and it's on the altar as well as growing in the stone circle. And in the sky, we have a swallow for the sun god, community, and security. So this High Priest, it is the card of tradition and organization of spiritual practice, such as is found in the Book of Shadows. So let's head on out and see where we can find some of this traditional energy in the garden. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Hierophant. So one of the things that I think really represents Hierophant energy is my garden and plant journal. It's really my book of learning. Things I've planted, mistakes I've made, everything that kind of goes on in the garden, I put on here. I have my indoor plants are in here, but also my garden plans. So here's my 2023 garden plans and ideas and beds and lots of things going on in there. So I think my garden journal is a great representation of Hierophant energy. The other thing that I think represents the Hierophant are these arborvitaes that border the back part of our yard. To me, they really are kind of that traditional boundary. They represent kind of everything that gardens stand for and kind of that learning process. The other thing that represents Hierophant energy for me are my sage plants. I have this one here in this bed, and this one is probably going on, I think, 3 years old now. I really did not think it would be a perennial in our area. I really thought the winters would kill it off, but it does seem to come back. Sage to me is really an herb of tradition. I have another sage plant over here on the other side of the deck that I think has been there even longer, probably going on 4 to 5 years for this sage plant over here. And it's just traditional garden sage. I use it to make bundles for smoke cleansing. I use it in cooking a lot. Lots of different great uses for sage. My other herb that I also think really represents Hierophant energy is my rosemary. So here's my rosemary plant. They do tend to do good here and overwinter okay. I did have one that I did have to replace one that was here because it just got too woody, and then I trimmed it and it did not go well. But again, I use a lot of rosemary in cooking, but it also represents a very traditional witchy herb for me. And now we are on to the lovers. You can see our 3 cards laid out again. I like to think of the Lovers card as a divine connection, or even as a path or a choice. So here in the Lovers card from the Mystic Fairy Tarot, we can see the apple tree. We see both the blossoms and the fruit in the apple tree. So right from the guidebook, apples have long represented the need to make a choice. For example, although the Bible does not specify that the tree of knowledge of good and evil was an apple tree, it is generally depicted as an apple tree. When you wander into this part of the garden, you are probably faced with a choice. And then for the Herb Crafters Tarot, it is being represented here by Hawthorn. And the Lovers is dance with the beloved. Desire in spring becomes sustenance in fall, and love blossoms, love wounds, and love heals. And although I don't have hawthorn in my garden, again, you see both the flower and the berry. And, you've got the path that they are on and make a choice. If you pick too many flowers in the spring, you may not have those berries come the fall. And then with the Greenwich Tarot, the Lovers are being represented by the Lord and the Lady. And you can see there's a big oak tree in the back. So all 3 of our cards today have had oak being a representation depending on which deck you're in for which card. So again, this talks about making choices. It shows harmony between the goddess and the god, working together, making choices and decisions together with a unity of heart and mind. So you have the oak tree in there, which it represents truth, wisdom, and loyalty. And then you have their hounds that represent and accompany them on in their aspects of huntress and leader of the wild hunt. So let's go on out into my garden and let's see where we can find some of these lover energies. And for that lover's energy is our apple tree that is smack dab in the middle of our backyard. I planted that probably about 10 years ago. It's a dwarf apple, although it has gotten pretty big. And we have crab apples in the neighborhood, so it pollinates well. I mean, gorgeous apple blossoms, and now we even have baby apples coming. That'll be ready in August and September. The apple is just really a great choice for the lover's card. You know, it's in the traditional representation of the card. You know, there's just so much divine connection with apples. Just see, and we've got lots of baby apples. Lots of baby apples. And the apple tree, again, is all about that divine connection for me. The other thing I think of when I think of the lover's card is just things that I love. And one of those is this peony. I love my peony plant. In fact, she's almost past her prime now. But look at these beautiful, beautiful blooms on my peony plant. She just does. She's gorgeous every year. And then, of course, the other thing for a lover's card is that choice, that commitment, or that choice or that path. What decision is going to lead you down which path? What kind of commitment are you going to make? And I'll be honest, I thought of the sidewalk in our front yard. You know, which way are you going to go now? I really think that can really represent the lovers. And I wanted to just take a moment to show you our front yard. The grass is just brown and crispy, and we're still in May. This has been one of the driest Mays, I think, that we have ever had. And I can't believe our grass is brown already. And then I take you through to my daylilies, and you can see we have chosen or naturally occurred path right through the front of them that we use and the dogs use, because sometimes we just can't be bothered to go up the steps, so we cut through this path. Hi everyone, I just wanted to thank you for coming again on my garden tour as we travel through the major arcana. Hopefully I will see you for our next video.